Many thanks to Joe V's Auto. Joe Van Kuren really helped me out here by allowing me to get access to the car that I sold him and get me the parts that he needs. Unfortunately, he's not going to be able to do much with the car, even before I was able to take the pump out. So he's probably just going to end up selling it for parts, but hopefully he can make as much money back as he can. Until then, I'm going to try to continue to take off as much as from the car as I can and work from there. All right, just about ready to drop the tank now. I don't really need to remove that cross member. Just one of the cross members I believe you need to remove, and the other one can stay put. But once this tank drops, and all the lines have been disconnected, so once the tank drops, I'll be able to access everything I need from above and take all the things that I need in order to make this E24 per. There's the tank. And what I need here is basically everything here. And I'll take the lines for good measure as well. And then this here is the low pressure sensor and its harness, so I need that. And basically, if I can actually salvage this and its mate to a hard line, then I might actually be able to use all of this in some capacity. As you can see, that there's a lot of custom tubes, bends, and everything like that that's going to make things a little bit more difficult in my application, but it shouldn't really make it too much of a problem. So the tank has been removed, and I've taken out everything that I need, and here it is. This is the pump with a self-regulator right down in there, so everything is already regulated coming out of the pump. I've got the locking nut here as well, and I've got all of the tubings, including the low pressure sensor, and of course the harness. So everything that connects is already here as well. Now I just need to get myself the fuel pump control module, which connects on that end right there directly to the module. So I got to find the module, pull it out, and then get its harness as well, and I am in good shape.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode. Today we're going to be talking all fuel. We're going to be adapting the Camaro fuel pump and pressure assembly into the E24 fuel tank. And this is a good idea for you guys, for anybody who's willing to do a fuel pump retrofit into their existing fuel tank. This can apply to just about everything. So I'm gonna actually post dimensions and pictures of the adapter that I use in order to get the Camaro fuel pump installed into the E24 fuel tank. So what we have here is the E24 fuel tank. I don't know what the size of the tank is, and I really don't care. I'm not going to be touching this. This is going to remain as is for the fuel sender. The fuel level sender is going to go right here, and it's going to still accurately measure the fuel send, the fuel level, to the instrument cluster. What I'm going to be doing is tapping into this hole here that will end up housing the actual Camaro pump. This pump works this way. You have your wiring here, right? You can see your little fuel pump right in there. Not little actually, but the red and the black wires are for your fuel pump. And that goes through this connector right here. And that connector that will then tie into not only the fuel pump control module, which I'll show you in a little bit, we'll talk about that with the wiring later, but it also it interacts with the fuel pressure sender, which is right here. This is actually a fuel pressure on the low pressure side of the fuel rail to actively monitor how much pressure is actually going out of this pump. This pump is a PWM controlled by the fuel pump control module, and it actually pumps it out of this. This is like a 3/8 quick disconnect, which is pretty cool. The problem is that this is actually quite high. And because it's so high, we need to make sure that when we install it into the tank that we make allocations inside of the trunk for this increased head height. But we don't really know exactly how high or low this is going to sit. Is it going to sit right flush with this? Is it going to be recessed a little bit? Is it going to be raised? That is dictated by the overall height of the entire assembly, right? This is actually sitting on the floor. The other thing you need to consider is this guy here is your evap. Now this is a really large hole, and this basically prevents fuel gas vapors from escaping the tank and going into the cabin or anything like that. So this actually is going to end up getting modified and connected to the charcoal canister of the E24, and that's going to end up getting sucked in through the solenoid on the LT1 upon initial startup. It's going to suck in all of these additional vapors that came out and actually use it as like a fuel savings. It's kind of like a fuel savings. It's good for emissions and all that good stuff. So So we have a few things here. I want to adapt this sensor and this wiring and this tubing as much as I possibly can. I don't mind if I cut it off here, or maybe I'll just make a quick connect adapter here that this just hooks on like factory. but that's gonna depend on how I clock this thing. So to keep on talking about the pump itself, if I were to start taking a lot of these things off, you'll find that this guy is kind of like a cover enclosure, and this is supposed to protect this plastic housings and everything like that. And I think I want to keep this. I think it's a good centering mechanism, and it's also a good mechanism for actually bolting down. I'm actually going to have studs coming up through the metal, and it's going to go up through here, and that's going to be what I use to basically sandwich the plastic piece into. And you'll see here that I have the stock seal as well, which will go underneath, and that'll kind of like sit underneath like that, right? And then finally, the fuel level sensor is right here. I'm actually going to remove this. You can see that I can just kind of do away with that. That's what this white and blue wire is for, and I don't really need that for anything because I'm actually going to be using the stock E24 fuel level sensor anyway. And then finally, here, you can see that there is a regulator. Now this regulator is literally the only regulation you need. So the fuel coming out of here that's being sensed by the pressure sensor here is the only fuel. This literally can go right into the fuel rail with a filter in line, of course, but there is that's it. There's no additional pressure regulation. There's no return. It's none of that. It's actually very well suited for this application. I'm very, very, very impressed about how they designed this system. And that's why I think that it's worth it to do the metal work to fit this into the tank than it is to do all the ancillary stuffs like the outside pressure regulator and the return line and all that other stuff that doesn't really seem to belong in the E24 once this LT1 is installed. Now, before we cut any metal, one thing I want to do is make sure that I have good cardboard cutouts first. And there's different types of cardboard. This is the type that you can kind of get on like Amazon boxes or anything that you have being shipped from UPS or FedEx. This is really terrible cardboard to use. It doesn't bend. It doesn't make good clean lines when you cut them. They're kind of hard to cut with scissors or even a knife. So what I found was the best type of cardboard to use for templating metal is like a cereal box, actually. It's thin, it bends really nicely. So in this case, we're gonna be doing curves to make like a circular curve around here. But also, what's really good is like a 30 pack of beer. In this case, I'm using a Labatt Blue. It's a Canadian Pilsner, and it's really, really good. Never fills you up and never lets you down. That's Bud, actually, I think. But anyway, they're good, they're big, a lot of surface area if you're gonna try making some templates of something large, and it writes really easily and cuts very easily too with either a knife or scissors. So what we wanna do first is basically get the outline of this. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make like a little channel that's gonna be the outside circumference of this plus some in order to make it easy to install. And then we're gonna cut out a circular template in order to actually have this actually mount on it. So we are going to recess the pump in as deep as we can because it's going to make the installation into the chassis a lot easier too. So we'll do a time lapse on the cardboard cutouts to see how far we can get with that. Okay, so for the most part, the template is done. And this is what it looks like. It's basically 2 pieces of thin gauge sheet metal, probably 16, maybe 14 gauge if I want to go thick enough. And basically that's all it is. So the way that it works is that I'm going to cut a hole in the tank this size. And then I'm going to create this fixture, this assembly, and that's going to drop into the hole and weld in to the side of the tank. I'm going to seal that area up. This guy is going to be the sole location of where the tank mounts, and it's going to end up going in just like this. Like that, first, and then it's going to twist, and it's going to go right up in here. And you saw in the time lapse that I was using the seal here, and the seal is going to end up getting inside of there, and it's going to be butting up against it. Just like this, if you guys can get a good look at that. So once it's sitting down, it's a matter of how do you secure it. And the securing mechanism is going to be this guy. And that's going to slide inside of here, and that's it. It's going to slide inside of there, and there's going to be studs that are going to be part of this assembly. The stud's going to be sticking up, and it's going to be fitting right onto this onto this guy so that it basically fits right on there, and then you can install them in that respect. The only problem that I'm having right now that I'm kind of seeing is if I do this, that I won't be able to get this guy in past this. I'm kind of just noticing that right now. This doesn't twist or turn, so I might need to cut this guy off just a little bit. Remember, this is evap, so it's not like it's pressurized or anything like that. I don't think I have too much of an issue cutting this. This, yes. This, not so much. Both of my templates cut out. Now it's time to essentially just take this guy and put it right on top, concentric with the template, and start marking my holes for where I'm going to end up putting my through bolts. And then I'll show you exactly how I plan to sandwich this guy to this guy with the fuel pump right in the middle with its gasket. That way this thing will be easily installable and removable without having any issues. All right, so now we have the fuel pump basically ready for install. Everything is buttoned up, everything fits. All of the bolts are torqued in a star pattern to make sure that everything compressed correctly. Looking at the back side, you can see that there is no chance for fuel to escape. And actually, if you look really closely in here, you might be able to see the green gasket that's kind of wedged in between the pump and the metal enclosure. So now it's a matter of taking this thing back apart, tracing out the right size, cutting that hole, and then this guy slips in there, and it might slip anywhere in this height here, but when we do find that correct height, we can then weld around the outside circumference. Now just take a look and see this guy actually moves in and out, which is perfect because it allows us to have that adjustability of height when we do our final weld. So let's just do that. Let's just trace our line. Let's cut this out and see what happens. And it also gives us a really good opportunity before we weld this to clean the tank. I can get my arm in here, I can do scrub, I can do scrub. I can scrub everything and clean it up really good. Boy, oh boy, am I glad I did this. The circular cut came out near perfect. There was a couple of little areas that need to be slimmed up a little bit, but that is not a big deal because the hole is still slightly smaller than the piece that needs to slip inside, but it looks like it's gonna fit near perfect. Now, like I said, this thing might end up being recessed a bit. It might end up being raised a bit. I'm not sure exactly where we want it, but we have a pretty good idea. The thing that I'm really glad about for doing this was mainly look at the dirt in there. Look at this. Look at this, Roddy. Watch. Look at that. I can literally grab it with my hand and sift it like beach sand. It is incredibly disgusting. And now I can get my whole hand in here and I can scrub all this out with my hand. This is the old filter bag, I guess. Yeah, that was pretty bad. But I can go in and I can clean all this. You can see that's where the level sensor is. It's kind of like a baffle for the level sensor. Yeah, this really won't be that hard to clean, but it'll be very, very effective to do this, do it this way while everything is out. Am I glad I did this conversion? All right, the tank has been cleaned outside and inside. Now, obviously, I want to paint the rest of this tank after I finish welding this, but I want to show you the inside and how much of a difference it makes. Look at that. I did a scrub inside and outside, and you can see the marketable difference here. This thing is shiny. I mean, there's some surface rust, but that's an old tank. That's just the way it's gonna be. I'm not painting it, I'm not doing anything with the inside. I'm just leaving it alone as is. That is the point of a filter mechanism on the input of the fuel pump. So now it's a matter of just trimming this out, getting the thing to fit, and then tacking it up. All right, so I was able to get the hole cut just exactly where I need it, and this sits perfectly. And if you twist it just enough, it kind of holds itself in position. And that's kind of what I want, I think. So what we do is, I want to get the pump in and see how far off the pump is until it's hitting the ground, and then start tack welding around the outside here. And then this will end up getting a full bead weld to completely encapsulate so that there are no leaks of any types of fumes in any way. So I'm pretty much ready to go here. Now, when you're welding on a fuel tank, you have to be really, really careful. The lower and upper flammability limits for gasoline it's a low percentage of fuel in the air. Very, very important for you to understand that. You can Google it. In fact, there's gonna be a link down in the description as to what those limits are. Not that you can ever measure them, but at least for you to know that it doesn't take a lot of fuel in the air-fuel mixture in order to combust. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna be filling up the gas tank with water as we weld and make sure that the fumes are minimized as much as we possibly can. So here is the kit. We have a fully restored, painted and cleaned, completed fuel tank. As you can see, there's weld all around the upper seam. Everything is sealed. Sealed on the back side of this weld, sealed on the top side on this weld. This is, yes, a little bit cold, but this is actually the second bead I made. I made a full bead, then I trimmed everything down, and then I did another bead on top. Painted it all black, cleaned off all of everything here from the seal on the fuel level sender, and you can see the tank is beautiful now. It looks almost, well, I mean, there's a lot of surface rust there, but everything else, all the gunk has been cleaned out, and everything looks really good. So let's reassemble this, put this whole kit back in there, and see how everything looks.